Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where six mates unpack three topics over a new drink each week. Fuck it, just go with that. We'll fix it if it's...
Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast. And it is Michael here today, hosting, and I am with some other people. Although we are missing one of our brothers, is now no longer with us. He is in London and hopefully listening to this podcast, and we'll try and get him on 1 week somehow through our technology, I think. Marco, this is the first podcast without him in the official studio, I suppose.
Make it his problem, mate. He's got all the time in the world, Ian.
He does.
He can fly down.
Yeah, he could. Yeah. But we do have, actually Justin as well is missing.
Also in Europe?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the drink and the food will come into it. We do have a European connection to today's beverage, but I will quickly introduce everybody else. And to my right is Travis Hayto.
Hey.
Magic Matt.
Yellow.
Jacob Moffit, the Prophet.
Afternoon, guys.
What the fuck was yellow?
It's like hello, but yellow.
It's not quite as good as Justin's suck.
No,
Sorry, it's not.
I'm looking for a little branded, I haven't figured it out yet, but
He's
one will
fully
come.
branded.
He's branded.
With
Sup.
that. What are you branded with? Conrad.
Conye.
G'day.
He's Conye.
Mate, today I'm Conye.
Actually, I saw a podcast done by a cartoon, and I think your new name...
podcast done by a cartoon.
Done in a cartoon. I think your new name could be Swagmire.
That was funny, that cartoon.
That was funny, that cartoon.
Oh, my God.
But welcome, Conrad.
G'day, Michael. Lovely to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, have five of us in the studio. I think it's...
It's the only day in the last 2 weeks it's been sunshine outside and we're fucking stuck inside.
I know, man. I was going to say we should do an outdoor podcast one day because it would have been perfect today.
Down at that winery we talked about. You made that happen yet?
No.
Lake House?
Yeah, the Lake House.
Lake House.
Can we make that happen?
Yeah, sure.
Long weekends coming up. Basketball season's in the over, Trav. We can go down Friday night, Saturday night.
Let's do it.
So what wine do we have tonight?
Talking about wine. Okay, as I said, two of the main guys are over in Europe just now, Justin and Marco. So I thought, and Justin is in Spain, I suspect, as we speak. He was yesterday.
He was.
He could be somewhere else now, but he was in Spain. So I have brought a Spanish wine, and it is called Radio Boca, and it's a Tempranillo. And it says it makes you chat, which is...
Have you done the research online? Because it could just be marketing that's getting you.
No, I just looked at the price and it was all right, so I grabbed it. No, I was looking for a Spanish wine, but this Radio Boca one, because it says something about juicy ripe strawberry, succulent dark cherries, and an exciting hint of cassis.
Should we get our scratch and sniff out?
We'll have you talking non-stop.
Oh, shit, like we need that.
And hopefully it has the reverse effect on people that are talking non-stop.
Jacob, what do you think of that?
Or you stuff your mouth full of bread.
So we currently have some olive oil balsamic and some fresh bread and salami as well, which Jacob is stuffing down his face. So I thought a bit of a European flavour today with,
appreciate it,
with
mate.
the guys over in Europe. So I will crack open this wine, and I think content today is Travis and Conrad.
Just for a change.
Yeah. And I'll give you an opportunity. It's like, anybody for content? Me, Conrad. Travis.
You want me to start, or are we going to drink wine first?
No, you start. I'll pour. I'll listen as well, though, I promise. I will listen.
Okay.
He's not using his ears to pour with.
Yes, anyway. Okay. Where do I start? I want to talk about time and people's value of time. There's a really interesting quote by the Dalai Lama. I think that ties into how people value time really well. And I personally think it's a very undervalued, thing with a lot of people. People don't actually, value their time enough. Personally, so the quote is, and it's quite a famous quote, and it's been around for a long time. I think I read it the first time about 10 years ago. So Dalai Lama. Okay, and he was asked what surprised him most about humanity, and his answer was, "Are we cheersing first?"
Yeah, we better get that cheers in.
Sorry, Dalai Lama.
So now you're breaking my groove. That's why I said, should we drink first?
It's only time.
You don't have to drink.
It smells spectacular. It
Sorry,
tastes
Travis.
really good too.
Can you please begin the quote from the Dalai Lama again?
It's not too dry, actually. It's quite nice.
It's really nice. Very fruity. I need that scratch and sniff.
It is okay. I like it.
You not taste the berry?
Yeah, but the very fruity thing, it's very grapey.
I did it on purpose, mate.
I know, that's why I was laughing. I got the joke.
It was funny on episode 4,
Yeah.
not 40.
And 20. 25.
Okay, where was I? So the Dalai Lama, when asked what surprised him most about humanity, this is what he answered. Man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money, then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health. And then he is so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he is never going to die, then dies having never really lived. I guess
Pretty cool quote. I like it.
yeah.
You've read that.
I think it's very cool because it epitomizes you work so hard, or a lot of people work so hard in something that they don't enjoy, sacrifice their health for doing that, and then try to spend that money to recuperate their health. Pretty counterintuitive, really, isn't it? So I guess
Pretty human.
Yeah,
It's very human.
yeah,
It's kind of like the negative circle
Because we've
of
got the
life.
permission to
isn't it?
think that, with this permission to think, and, we automatically think what we're doing is right.
yeah, exactly. So I guess my question to you guys is there anything that you do to try to make your time in, whether if it's allocating time to your family or allocating time to your work or your passion or any or sport or whatnot, is there anything that how you structure your day or tips or tricks or hacks that you do to value your time and make it as most effective?
Fuck. Oh, yuck.
Maybe we'll just take a little pause at this point because Conrad just dropped his mic all over him and
his wine.
And his wine just went everywhere.
Oh, shit.
We'll be back in a minute.
Okay, and we're back. Conrad, how are you?
Just get to touch his mic.
There's actually wine all over your mic.
Never been
Fluffy
this-
thing as well.
Never been this close to
Yeah,
it.
okay, good. Well,
It's actually in there.
Conrad's
that's what I was pulling off.
Conrad's wiping
Hang on,
his
all
mic
right,
fluff
sorry.
thing.
Let's just make sure it's not going to get loaded with red wine.
I think it's just in the spongy thing.
Yeah.
It's all right.
There's
Just squeeze it out on here.
we officially have wine all over Conrad's pants, up his crack, in the fluffy thing over the mic.
Oh, really?
We
That's karma. So whatever I was supposed to have done, I reckon that's karma. I just don't know what was so bad.
well, I think it was because you were actually listening instead of talking this
Like we
time.
know what's going to happen now.
So
Okay, are we back on board, I think?
yeah, so
We're back.
I was asking any tips or tricks or hacks or I don't know what you do to value your time and how you manage your time effectively. I don't know, just putting it out there for kind of comment or personally, I like to make lists and kind of prioritize them.
What do you use? You use that tool. That
Yeah, I
time
use
tool.
a tool called Trello. Use that.
You're the only one in the world using Trello, I think.
There's a few people who don't use it.
Really?
There's bloody,
Really? It's pretty.
I'm joking.
bloody- hey, can you go back to listening?
He can't listen. He's too close to the table now.
Yeah, I know, right?
We need to get him further back.
I can't move
It
because I'll
looks weird. It
squelch.
looks really
I
weird.
know.
Yeah. Well, with Trello, it's really easy because it's digital, and I make my list through that, and then I prioritize it. So the top is obviously the highest priority, and then I kind of work down the list from there.
Trav's one of the best at it I've seen from that type of perspective. I'll give you credit on that.
Yeah, because I think because for me, it started when I was a kid. Actually, I wouldn't be able to sleep, so I used to have a notepad next to my bed and used to write it down to get out of my head. And then I've just kind of learnt that over the years, and now I have to get it out of my head and I have to have it written down, and then I have to prioritize it because otherwise you procrastinate on doing stupid little shit things at the bottom of the list, and you don't really need to do those things. You need to do the ones at the top. So it's that accountability for myself. So that's how I value my time with that, because if I'm procrastinating and doing the crappy little things, it's not stepping me in towards the direction of actually achieving my goal for that day or that week or that year.
And you're largely self-employed by yourself in a one-person team, so that's what you used, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'm freaking out about. Not freaking out about, but I've got Victor on board now who's kind of taken over all the projects. So he's running data.
What are you doing then?
Exactly. And that I've felt that over the last. It's been
You're a
brilliant.
visionary now.
Oh, exactly, trying to get the vision, the why, all that sort of stuff down.
Sits in the armchair with a pipe,
Come hither.
sending DMs.
But no, I'm feeling that just now. So I'm feeling I need to be much more better at time management.
To serve Victor better.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
And that's my focus.
That's fantastic, right? Because that's given you some focus.
It has. Well, sort of the opposite to begin with, sort of
Distraction,
non-focused distraction, and sort of working at the higher level stuff that I need to be doing on a day-to-day basis. So I'm in that sort of weird transition period just now. A good transition. Good transition. period.
And noted though, your energy's been very different. And I don't know whether it's because that situation's happened or
Maybe.
you've got some more, you feel like you're adding more value. I don't know.
Maybe there are a few things going
It's,
on. So
it's energetically, you seem different.
yeah,
It allows you to be uncomfortable as well with that sort of thing, because that's not something. Obviously, you've been a sole trader for a long period of time, and when someone else comes into that, into your business, and it allows you to be uncomfortable and do things and operate in a different way. So
So I'm sort of discovering just now a big level of accountability, which is really good, which I've always needed, which is one of the things. That's why I
Should be using Trello.
Yeah, we use Rike, which is quite
Oh,
good.
yeah? W-R-I-K,
We were using Asana, but Victor's changed it all. He's changed it to Rike, and it's really good actually for task management.
So is Victor entrepreneuring?
He is. He's a gun with projects and stuff like that. Really good, which is what I needed. But put me out of this sort of loop that I was so used to doing, dealing with clients day to day. So it's a really interesting space I'm in just now, and I'm sorting it out, trying to get.
Well, you do both. You going through that process. Your disc profile job both the same way. So it was always going to be interesting to see how that whole thing played out.
Yeah, but on a bigger level with time, what I've tried to do over the last few years is just be very present in time. So on a really micro scale, just every second, every day, every second, every hour, just being very conscious of not looking into the future too much or thinking about the past. Because the past is just regret, I suppose, if you're thinking about it too much, and the future is just anxiety, thinking about things that are coming up. So I'm really trying to focus, and that's a sort of very Buddhist way of thinking about it in regards to the Dalai Lama. Is just like time is now and always will be and always has been. So that I'm trying to sort of look at that sort of picture as well on a daily basis, and I find that works really well. Just sort of always being present, but it's hard because your little brain is telling you other things, and it's that constant battle between the ego and that voice in your head.
I think it's okay to look into the past, but only for reflection.
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
definitely,
for sure.
definitely.
Yeah.
And
But
gratitude.
not live in the past.
Yeah, definitely.
Reference the past.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the past is well used as a reference point and as a reflection base, rather than trying to live in the past all the time.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, I think that's one way you can use the past to fuel your future or your present.
Because the big question is, what is time?
Well, time is actually quite interesting. That question is actually quite interesting. I believed I got somewhere near the answer when I read a book called The Timekeeper by Mitch Albom. And I read that back in 2012, and since then I haven't worn a watch. And it's nothing fucking magnificent. It's just, for me, it's just a reminder how important time is. Now, yes, I can get time off everything we use these days. So a watch generally is a piece of jewelry. But I used to love watches because of that. But so in that book, what I learned, and the validity behind it we can reference, but time, they believe, was invented to allow shipping to occur, largely around the high tides and low tides, and to allow ships to come in and come out. So around the shipping lanes is why time was invented. And yet man has used time to become the slave to.
Yep.
And that book is actually quite interesting because that's what it pulls apart how we use time not to live. It talks to that quote directly. It's a phenomenal book. If you ever get a chance to read it, guys, I can strongly urge it.
That's
The Timekeeper by Mitch Albom.
Yeah, and that's where things, because time changes. Like when you meditate, time is of no.
When you're immersed in something that you're fully in tune with, a minute can seem like an hour. Okay, you lose time, and that's why part of what Marco's rationale was finding out what he wants to do with his life was what does he lose time doing.
Yeah, it's really because actually a real world example of that was watching the Eagles game at the weekend. Right, the first half watching it, boom, 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 boom. Then the Andrew Gaff incident happened, and that second half, it honestly felt like it was going on forever and ever. It was a really weird. the way your mind is sitting dictates how time is sort of passing, I suppose. Yeah, it's a really strong, powerful influence.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Well,
Exactly.
we talked about time, and you circulated the content last night, and I dropped in that jelly beans video, which I think they might try and slice to anyway, or input in the show notes anyway, Matt. To me, that I watched that with my daughter years and years and years ago, and have used that as a tool to teach people about how precious time is, using jelly beans to count out the days you have to do things. And to me, I use a very simple equation to validate what I do with my time. I mean, I think the world only has two real investable commodities. Simply, I see it as time or money, as investable commodities. And if you are going to invest time in anything, then you would and should probably consider how much money you're making from that to a certain point, so that it enables you to use your money to invest to buy back your time. And that's largely an investment principle that I use with my clients and I use with myself, and to obviously look to figure out where I want to get my time back. So I've got to invest money in my future to allow me to take back my time as quickly as possible.
And that's a little bit like that Dalai Lama quote, isn't it? So you're sort of working away to get this money to then get your time back, which you've already lost. So you're sort of in this circle.
So the precursor to all that is love what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So I mean that comes back to purpose, which I think we'll come back to in the next piece that we talk about. So if you love what you do, spend as much time doing it because it's going to make you feel great, but use it to allow yourself to extract yourself from, to immerse yourself in life.
Jacob, now that you've stopped eating.
Hang on. Jacob, just before you start talking, because I think you're in a very interesting spot. You're late 20s, you own your own business. You've been in business, 4 years now?
It'd be 3 years in December.
3 years in December. You've got a young fella, Henry.
About to turn 1 at the weekend.
About to turn 1. So I think you're in a very interesting spot where you're kind of trying to value your time with your family, with your business, with your self-ambitions. So it'd be really interesting to hear how you kind of, work that through with your mindset.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good lead into the tool that I've been using recently, one that I call Perfect Week. So I've got a Google Sheet. You could use any sort of spreadsheet, but it's just mapped out Monday to Friday, half-hour increments. So I kind of go, what would a perfect week look like in terms of my training, how many hours I'm putting into my work, family time, and my kind of sporting commitments now as well, because they're the kind of main pillars of my time at the moment. Sort of business, family, and my physical, my kind of sport. So we've just started pre-season, so there's a couple of fixed times that I'm, I guess, responsible to be part of the team. You'd fill that with basketball, and then in a couple of months we'll start playing games on weekends as well. It's always a balance. There's only so many hours you've got in a week, and so I kind of go, cool, what's the first priority? And I map out my family stuff. So we do swimming on Sunday mornings. We have breakfast with my family on a Sunday night. I put in the podcast. I put in our breakfast and sit on Thursday mornings. I kind of put in
I feel special.
What are the sort of non-negotiable, non-work, non-sport.
Podcast on a Friday.
Yeah, podcast.
She said.
You said that.
Yeah, what are the things that I put in there that
I might come back next week.
I kind of have the flexibility to build my time around, and then I go, cool, where am I going to fit my training in? Yep. And then I kind of build work around that, and that's the flexibility I found.
Do you give yourself any kind of free time? When I say free time, so nothing in the blocks, so where you're kind of open to...
Yeah, there's sort of gaps at the moment where I've kind of put in like a Tuesday afternoon, there's a Sunday morning. There's a couple of kind of half days where it's family time, it's my time, it's kind of whatever I like. Like I used to have a full day where Ainsley was at work before Henry was born. That was just kind of my day, whereas I've almost lost that to a degree in the last year, where if I'm home, there's always expectations and responsibilities, and I've lost that, like, my time.
I believe it's called adulting.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's remove the word expectations, just responsibilities, Jacob.
Yeah. But and I haven't really struggled to adjust to that as much as I maybe expected. I still get moments in my time. I make sure that Ainsley gets some time to herself as well.
That's pretty important, I think. Yep.
So that, like, business we know is a 24/7 sort of job, and so is parenting, but you do need those breaks every now and then just to give yourself a chance to recharge.
The 25th hour is when you take the break, mate.
So again?
The 25th hour is when you take the break.
If you want a badge, anyway.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, and each week I just make little tweaks as new commitments and new events pop up. But
So you revisit once a week, and like at the beginning of the week, and just sort of...
And I use, similar to what Travis was saying, I have some lists I use to prioritize kind of what am I going to do with my 30 or 40 kind of work hours I've got. But I recently found that I wasn't working nearly as much as I maybe thought I would, because obviously we have the expectation of team members that they work, say, like a 40-hour week. And by the time I deducted all the training I was doing, all the other commitments I was making, I was struggling to fit 30, 35 hours into my week. I thought, cool, do I need to work a couple more nights? Do I need to fill out half a weekend? Kind of where am I going to fill this time in to make sure that I'm leading by example? Or if I'm not, what am I going to do in 30 hours? That's the productivity of 40 hours. So I can still make sure I'm getting the most out of it as well. I guess everyone gets stuck in the trap of saying I have to clock in 40 hours when perhaps in half the time you can achieve just as much if you do it in the right way. So
yeah, I think it's a value thing. If you value work, some people do just attach on to that 38, 40 hour week.
Yeah.
For some godforsaken stupid reason. Because I don't think you can put, if at any given time you might need to put in more time, and any given time you can take less time. But yeah, I think with our lives, I think it's a bit easier like that because we pretty much control what we control. I've got the same thing to my staff though. My team over there, if they want to get the shit done, get it done. And if I don't see you, I don't see you.
How do you measure your staff's kind of time, or do you, or how do you kind of?
They're retina tracked in front of the computers. So yeah, no, I'm joking. I don't do that.
I was believing you there for a second.
Not with your computers, mate. I'm pretty sure you're still running Commodore 64s over there.
Windows 95.
I mean, we track time. I don't track time.
Yep.
There's expected hours that they're in and out, but I mean, the team themselves can pretty much coordinate that largely. So I expect someone there to answer the phones anywhere between 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and that doesn't mean everyone has to be there. So they can work that through themselves. I don't get involved in any of that stuff.
Yep.
I set the expectation, and they figure it out.
Yep. It's a better way to work, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, some people need some direction, so you got to give it to them when they need it. But I'd like to give them the opportunity to write their own destinies a bit more. We have used tracking software, and I mean, loosely speaking, Matt, we didn't use iRetina tracking software. We used some software that tracked time that popped up, and people had to, because we're in a time charging business, so you got to be responsible with your time. I didn't use it for time tracking from a time perspective or dollar perspective. I did it from a productivity perspective. What were they doing and were they getting the best things out of it to help us build our systems and processes, which
we do it too.
Served us really well, so that we can direct them the right way. So that's how I use time. But time is very important to me, so I rather spend it doing what I love doing, which is why I'm lucky to be doing what I'm doing.
It's something you'll never ever get back.
No, sure.
The moment you just lived is gone forever.
Yeah, and just recently I drove down to my daughter's 18th birthday, 2.5 hours down, 2.5 hours back, and spent an hour and a bit with her down there. But then I had the time in the car with my mum, so that's like 5 hours of sitting there, her shoving some content down her neck and then talking about some stuff, and her learning a bit more about me and learning a bit more about you guys because she asked a few questions. She didn't know who Travis Hayto was, and I had to remind her that he's this ranger that's been around for a while. Just joking. It's what you do with your time, right? So I said, Mum, we can listen to radio, we can listen to some content stuff. She goes, and then she came back to me and goes, "Oh, is this stuff? How much does it cost to get this stuff?" I said, "It's free, Mum. It's on YouTube." I said, "Use your data." She goes, "Oh, yeah, but I'm scared about going over my data limits." I said, "I pay for it, and you're at 20 gigs on your phone." I said, "I'm only on 10." So I believe she's been consuming some content this week. I just don't know what.
All right. And to pull it back to the topic.
Well, Tom,
Hey?
that's what she was using.
I'm joking, mate. It's very good.
Sorry.
No. It's really nice to hear that your mum was listening to us on the trip down.
It meant a lot to me. It was that episode
I'm
about
sure
my dad.
it did. Of course it was.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It's great that that you have that to be able to share with her.
Yeah, exactly.
What about yourself, Matt? What's your thoughts on time?
Yeah, I think time's a funny one, especially when, like, similar to some of us. I mean, I've got 2 kids. They demand a lot of time. Business demands a lot of time, but I actually enjoy all of it. So I really do enjoy what I do, and I'm privileged to be in that situation. Very grateful for that. I know a lot of people aren't in a position where they enjoy what they do, but there's not a lot in my life that I dislike ever. So the only time really becomes important to me, and don't get me wrong, I write little to-do lists and always prioritizing, and I'm always doing things like just breaking out of the office for 2 hours and just sitting somewhere and making sure that I'm not just getting caught up in the whirlwind of what's happening. I'm going to think. But the only time that really time matters is on reflection. And it's when you're looking back and, have I achieved what I wanted in the last 30, 60, 90 days, 12 months? I think that's the only time you potentially get upset about time, or otherwise you typically move through, I think, adjusting your habits, like the ideal week that you just talked about, Jacob. I think I've done many times. And when I've done that many times, I realize it changes. 60, 90 days, it's changed again. And I make this adjustment for another type of sport or whatever's going on. But the only time is really a problem is when I look back and go, I haven't achieved my goals. Or, why am I not closer towards this? So I realized that I think I talked about this sort of several weeks back about decisions. And I think every time you look at, say, the last 3-6 months, how many things did you actually decide and do differently? Or were you just tapping along with that same, getting as close to your ideal week as you can, which, very rarely do we, fully land that ideal week because there's always distractions. But, what did I do in the last 90 days that actually allowed or changed those habits and made those adjustments? So I find time works that way, because if you can take and knock over lead domino, you're moving further and further into a zone where you're happy with how you spend your overall time, I think. So I think that's the macro side against the sort of smaller side, which we've talked to in most of this show. And I think that's super important. It's something that, like, when I do break away and try and find time, that's sort of what I'm thinking about. Like, am I just getting caught up? I'll walk in the office and my team will ask me lots of questions. Like, it's very easy to lose half a day. And I love that. That's really fun. This client, that client, what's going on, move through things, half a day's gone. But have I actually done that really big key thing that I need to achieve? Frog? Have I eaten that frog? Have I done something to change the next 12 months? And that's where I really focus on, because I don't think in the micro, apart from the achievement or the decision, you really get much further along than just rolling through normal days, normal practices. Like, you pay that bill, you do this, you do that. Fine, we all have to do that. But what are we, how are we changing our lives? And then if you don't have any goals, well, all you're going to do is do that forever. So, yeah.
Well, not forever, because it will suddenly stop.
Well, for your ever.
Yeah.
Or maybe beyond that.
Yeah, well, who knows? Who knows?
Trav, I guess.
No, I think it's quite good. I want to draw it back to Michael's point of just living in the moment, and that's probably something that I value the most out of the time aspect of probably this conversation as well. Because if I could probably put that across to someone that is looking to grow their personal development, it is to value their time, but it is also to live in the moment. Because if you don't live in the moment, then you're never actually grateful for the moment that you're in, and you're always looking ahead. So I think I'm happy with where that was going. Should we move on?
We should. And we're on to you, Conrad.
I guess just to segue through to that, it's I've been listening to some content online which I've circulated with you guys, but just before that, and just to end up with where you were, Trav, obviously I post on a regular basis, and my post today probably largely motivated by things and conversations I've been having was largely around time, but purpose, Michael. It's a topic that we've had with you a lot, and it was an interesting one to present again. But there is no greater gift you can receive than to honour your calling. It is why you were born and how you become most truly alive. And I guess that was by Oprah Winfrey, and the content that I consumed and circulated with you guys was was an interview done by Tom Bellenew on impact theory. And we interviewed a bloke by the name of Garen Jones, and to not try and replicate Tom's intro of Garen, I think we'll just cut to the introduction and come back and discuss the content.
Hey everybody, welcome to Impact Theory. Our goal with this show and company is to introduce you to the people and ideas that will help you actually execute on your dreams. Today's guest is one of the most fascinating rags to riches stories I have ever heard. He was born in the 3rd Ward of Houston, Texas. His father was an abusive, alcoholic drug dealer who was murdered when he was just 12 years old. And by the time he was a teenager, he was breaking into cars and houses, and his criminal activities continued to escalate until he was sentenced to 12 years in a French prison for drug smuggling. Fortunately, he only ended up serving 2.5 years of his sentence, and recognizing immediately he'd been given a second chance, he cleaned up his act and threw himself into his passion for music. After a chance encounter with the actor and hip-hop artist Ludacris, he signed a $500,000 deal with DTP Records, and suddenly he was writing hit songs for major artists such as 2 Chainz and dating American Idol winner Jordan Sparks. But it all happened way too fast. He was playing the part of the famous rock star, but secretly he was living out of his car and drowning in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. For more than 2 years, he lived in his car until one day he hit rock bottom. And knowing he had to make a drastic change, he quit the record label, changed the group of people he was hanging out with, and went to work on his mindset. He read The Power of Positive Thinking 282 times, took total responsibility for his life, and began focusing on value creation. And from that, he was able to build multiple 6-figure businesses, going from massively in debt to the 1%, and establishing himself as one of the premier motivational speakers on the planet. So please, help me in welcoming the man who was invited to speak in nearly 30 countries last year, the author of the upcoming book, Change Your Mindset, Change Your Life, Garen Jones. Welcome to the show, man.
That was one hell of an entrance.
Dude, that's one hell of a life.
So, gents, I'm guessing you guys have had some time. I'm hoping you've had some time. It's only about 30-odd minutes, so it wasn't a long piece of content. But it's impacted me a lot, because this is another piece of content I listened to my mum with in the car, and I've listened with a few people with. So I've listened to it a few times now. And there's a variety of different things from it. But I'm also very mindful that I only take out of it what I'm prepared to take out of it. This is one of the forums I get an opportunity to throw it out there and see what you guys took out of it, just to give me some other perspective on the piece of content. So, I mean, the last 5 minutes for me is probably the most important, but it's probably even the last minute when he was asked about his impact and how he echoed his purpose well enough. I mean, I say to people these days, I'm pretty lucky to do what I do. I run a finance company. It's a business. I do some consulting. I do some basketball coaching. I'm a dad, I'm a brother, and all the roles I play around the place all allow me to do one thing, and one thing is to have great conversations, to empower and lead people to the best versions of themselves. That's what I use all of those tools for, whatever the hat is. And sometimes those conversations are challenging, sometimes they're confronting. I had a couple of them this morning with people where I've just got to feel like I've got to tell it as it is, not how they may want to hear it. And they're not comfortable conversations, but who else is going to have that conversation if I leave it for someone else to have? And so his purpose, when he talks about connecting with his higher purpose, to allow other people to do the same around him, and what excites him is about not what he is today, but what he will be in 5 years' time if he honours that purpose. To me, kind of excites me. I picked up his passion through that, and without telling you guys any more, I'm really keen to see what you guys took from it, because I think I could get lost in that piece alone. Anybody want to throw 2 bobs in? Trav, you took a lot from it. You reckon it was a bit of...
You are what you say you are. The power of self-talk, visualization is a very powerful tool. Obviously, if you go and listen to this, I highly recommend it. He goes through a story where he talks about change your mind, change your life, change your mind, change your life, change your mind, change your life. And basically,
He asked for a sign, right?
Yeah.
And that's the sign he got. And it took a week for it to bed down for him to get what it meant.
yeah,
When the poor person on the street asked for money, had more money than him.
yeah, and basically the work he does with kids and adults, he basically wants to change their mindset, and you have to be the person that wants to change your mindset, and you are, like the old quote, you are what you eat. It's you are what you say you are. So if you're saying to yourself you're broke, shit at basketball, not good looking, you're exactly those things. If you want to be rich, if you want to be happy, if you want to have energy throughout the day, you have to say them to yourself repeatedly. You have to talk yourself through that. You have to visualize that, and you become that. So the power of the mind, I think, is something that resonates a lot with me, because that's something I value very, very strongly. And that's one piece that I took out of it, Conrad. I think that's the major contributing factor of his story, I feel, because it was no outside influence. It was that sign, and then he really looked at it and goes, well, I'm the one that's going to have to be accountable for me, because he blamed everyone else, and then he finally looked at himself, and that was his triggering factor that allowed him to change his life.
Yeah, cool. Matt?
Yeah, just like on that, and the other part of the extension is the repetition, and he just, you can't do it 2 or 3 times and expect any change. He I don't know how many times he said he read that book, The Power of Positive Thinking.
282.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
So but that's what it's not going to take reading a book once or reading a book twice, or repeating or doing whatever you're doing, like whatever kind of affirmation you might be doing, it's not going to happen by doing it tonight, but you've got to do it over and over again and believe it, and believe it deeply. But the key thing I actually got out of the interview was, aside to the content itself, it's not very often you watch an interview with someone, and even through YouTube, I think I watched it on my phone, not my iPad, so fairly small screen. The energy I felt from watching that piece of content was incredible.
Yeah, he was dialed in, right?
He was dialed in, and what he was resonating through thousands of phones or iPads or computers or Commodore 64s around the world it was incredible. And so that was, to me, just showed you how dialed in he was, that he was able to project that even through that kind of medium.
But here's one for you, because I know you're an avid reader. Leaders are readers.
Yeah.
So when he was at his peak, he was reading and consuming. He stopped it, went to another low, and then realised what he changed.
Yeah, that was the big thing I took from it, was the education side of it. You just got to constantly be taking in and really taking in information, not just browsing over stuff and sort of pretending that you've got to this
Consumed
next
it.
level. It's like consuming it and letting it consume you.
Yeah.
And he's read the Quran, the Bible, everything, and
I'm reading
over and over again.
I'm reading a piece at the moment which talks about decoding the wealth amongst the Jewish people, and a slightly known fact is that 1% of the world is Jewish population, but yet 25% of the world's wealth is attached to Jewish people. And then going through this book, one of the cornerstones of what they teach is wisdom, and wisdom that's obtained through learning their sacred texts. And there's an expectation that Jewish people learn their sacred texts to a point where they can speak their sacred texts. And that then talks about what he's saying, in the sense that you become what you consume. All right, and when I think about what he said, and it prompted me to go back to reading this book, the science is real. You become what you consume. Yet we consume newspapers, we consume drama, we consume fucking TV shows.
TV.
Yeah. What are you consuming? And then you'll see why you feel the way you feel.
And who are you hanging with? Who are the people around you?
Well, that's the proximity piece, yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, I didn't get proximity from him. I really did get what you're consuming. And we talked about this a few episodes ago in relation to music, where I went away from music to consume talkback radio. only to figure out talkback radio was fucking with my mind. And then shut my radio off and started to consume audio books and podcasts and those things where I can curate the content and know what I want to take in. Leaders are readers. A phenomenal quote, and I remember when I started going on my real bender of self-learning, I was just consuming books and becoming manic and talking to people a lot like I was fucking the Rain Man.
The interesting thing, and I think we had a conversation this week about it, is when you go on a bit of a consuming rampage, which is I love doing, and I'm in my best spaces when I am. I'm also potentially in my worst headspace if I'm consuming a lot of content, because I think there's a massive connection with doing at the same time as you're consuming, and I think you see a lot of people, and I've certainly been there multiple times myself, where you can get lost on this consumption rabbit hole, and as soon as you detach and you're out thinking and have your headspace in this, in a totally different world to where your current actions are, you can really find a disconnect. But if you're taking action, you are leading, and you're then reading and learning a lot at the same time, it's a powerful connection.
But action can be simply as sharing the content.
Sure.
Because you might be the conduit to someone else hearing your version of what you've just heard. So, I use content a lot to fuel conversation. Jacob?
Yeah.
Fuck, you look like you just caught the headlights, bro. You got food coma.
Yeah. just listening, absorbing. The biggest takeaway for me was that the journey isn't linear.
The journey isn't linear.
Isn't linear.
Isn't linear. Yeah.
Is that everyone has this expectation, especially in these rags to riches sort of stories, that they were poor, they grew up, they were in a drug family, they were abused or whatever, and then they did some work and they made it. Whereas in his case, he said he did the work, he got recognized, but then he fell off his purpose, went into another sort of valley, and then had to pull himself out of that again. So it's not always just from 0 to 1 sort of journey. You can go back, you can go forward.
And it talks to what you just talked valleys, and I think I'm reminded about peaks and valleys in the book that we've mentioned before. And he talks about learning a lot, right? So one of the precursors to learning is being humble enough to learn, and knowing that you don't know all the stuff. Yeah. And so again, one of the keys from that book was humility and gratitude.
Yeah, he had the self-awareness to realize that the patterns he'd fell back into, despite his wealth, despite his connections, despite the perception from outside that he'd made it wasn't in line with his purpose and who he truly wanted to be. So he got back on the education, he got back on the mindset, and then he went on a new path and was able to elevate himself further. Whereas most people would get there, and most of the pop stars we see, most of the celebrities that we see a lot of, they just kind of go, cool, I've got money, I've got fame, I've made it.
That can be the problem with goal setting, like getting to that goal and thinking that it's done. You're done.
Well, that's the problem. The problem with goal setting is that the goal's too easy.
Yeah.
It's not stretching enough.
Well, it's only the beginning, isn't it? Once you reach that first goal, you're only just beginning the journey. There'll be a low, there'll be another peak, there'll be another low. So that's just the human condition. It's up and down all the time.
Oh, but I'm really of the belief that if you allow humility and gratitude, you don't valley. You don't. Because the learning is gold.
Yeah.
The learning through the failure, that what we would have seen happening to us, now happens for us to learn.
That's at this top level that you're
No,
talking
man. Yeah, it's at every level. I mean, levels that you're talking about, it's not linear, right? Yes, this happens. Okay, but that happens because you've either become arrogant, complacent, greedy, your vision was wrong. But if you allow yourself to learn and learn and learn, you might plateau for a while until you find your next opportunity to grow with.
Yeah.
But you won't valley. You will not valley.
Or it depends how deep you're going, because I think most people will go into little, be it during a day, in the morning. I
don't believe so. I mean,
you must go through times when you hit what you may call a low, I suppose.
No, I'll hit bumps in my road from time to time to give me a check, but I know I've been low, right? I get how low is.
Yeah.
All right, but I'm always looking for the learning.
Mm-hmm.
All right, which is what I know stops me from seeing things happening to me. So if I can see the learning, then I'll allow myself to learn.
And I think that's one of the things he talked about as well, was just this outward, like giving all the time, like just love, like giving out love to everything.
Yeah.
Like no matter what's happening to you, it's a kind of positive mindset all the time, which is
and
it's a hard thing to...
It's hard to do, but when you can appreciate with humility and gratitude the opportunities to learn, things are always happening for you.
Yep.
You know, the speeding ticket happened for you because who knows whether you avoided the fucking accident up the road.
Yeah. And that's just a mind shift, isn't it? Putting yourself in a different perspective of any situation.
Yeah, but it's allowing yourself to see that, you know, and so that's what he did. He, change your mindset, change your life. And I know I did that. I had to do that because everything was happening to me up until December the 8th, 2009, which I know the date in which I changed the way I looked at the fucking world.
Yep.
I had to.
What changed?
My mindset. I said to myself, this shit can't keep happening to me.
Why was that day rock bottom, or what's happened that day that made it different?
So what happened on that day was there was a building site next to my house. I live in the third unit of 3 villas. They had the fences down there, laying the concrete on the foundations. And in the morning, I was on the phone to my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I was literally on my knees in the hallway of my house in tears, and I was busted. And she said, I know what I could do to help you, but I can't help you. I was broken, and I knew I had to get some shit done for work. So I went in my car, went out my driveway, forgot my wallet. What I was going to do is get some stuff from work to come back and work at home because I was just busted. Came back up my driveway, parked my car in the driveway, went inside my house to get my wallet. Now, my house is a small house, so literally 10 seconds in the house to the back of my house to go get my wallet. A massive explosion happened. The concrete truck pouring the concrete, laying the foundations, exploded. Okay? Glass fucking shattered everywhere. The front of my house has got glass windows and shit. That all shattered. The 2 cars I had in my driveway, which was one car was my work car, the other one was just a personal car, covered in concrete. When I walked out of the house, and there's a massive bang, something hit my roof and the back fence. When I came out and looked at my car, it was a BMW X3 at the time, the one that was sitting in the driveway. It looked like it'd been fucking shot at. There's literally bullet holes in the fucking chassis of the car and chunks of concrete in the middle of the car. And I came out and said, what the fuck's happened? And these guys are sitting there on the fucking side thinking, thank God you were in your house. Okay. Now, that year my dad passed away. My girlfriend had left me. And I was feeling pretty fucking terrible. Okay. It was that day, that afternoon, I broke down on my mate's couch and I said, this just can't keep happening to me. This shit can't keep happening to me.
And I think that's a common story, is that there's a lot of people have that like rock bottom. He talks about that at the start, where there's that day where he's yelling like, universe, give me a sign, give me something. And I guess that event was the sign for you that was like, enough's enough.
For
Something's
sure.
got to change.
But when I look back at my life, there's been plenty of signs for me to do that, but I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And when I walked out and I saw their faces, and they actually thought I was in the car and I was actually hurt, and they actually said, we thought you'd fucking died. That's the realization I had, because if I had been out there, I don't know what would have happened to me, but literally the car looked like Bonnie and Clyde's fucking car. All right, so take it for what it is. I mean, I had to change my mindset. There was no other way for me forward.
So you've definitely changed your mindset, but I think, so that was a big valley, right? But I think you still have a lot of other valleys. And in the process, I think you flip a switch there, and that switch allows you to not travel to the depths of the valleys.
Potentially, mate. I can appreciate where you guys want to go with that. It's just not where I am.
Well,
I don't let myself get into a valley, man. I just don't. And I'm not being disrespectful to you or Michael, because if you want to play that space, go for it, but that's not where I go.
I agree with you, Conrad, because if you speak to yourself and talk to yourself and allow yourself and say that there are valleys, then there will be valleys. But if you are talking to yourself about not going into a valley, then you'll never truly feel like you're going to. So it goes back to that self-talk and that visualization. I kind of agree with you. Like I very feel that there's going to be plateaus, but I strongly believe that I don't go to valleys because I don't want to allow myself, and I don't talk myself into going to valleys. So why should I go down?
I see it as steps, right? The plateau's a step. You learn, you repair, you repair. You be humble and grateful, and you reset your goals, and you go on your next climb and do the work. You do the work on the climb. You get to that plateau, the next step. That's how I see it. I actually don't fucking see it as falling down. I just don't. I honestly
Maybe
don't.
it's more seeing it as there are challenges in life, right? Which we all have, obviously.
For sure, yeah,
And
but
it
that's
is
an
how you-
opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is how you see them.
You don't
And I
always,
think-
you don't always see them straight away.
No,
And
it's-
you
But
do,
dude,
'cause
clearly
I
I
think
didn't. Clearly I fucking didn't until I nearly lost my life. And
No,
I nearly
no.
lost my life on 3 occasions, right? I've only gone through one. But that's the most recent.
Yeah. And it's not just about losing your life. I just think it's general life, is what I'm saying. So I've seen elements of, I've certainly had them. I've seen elements or things that you've been through that have been frustrating you, and you could take it to a valley situation, but
I don't.
You've learned to shift. So that's what I'm saying. There's always going to be that, especially in the growth phase. We're always growing. We're always learning. As time goes on, so you'll take a turn, and it's how long do you stay on that?
It's how long you stay on the plateau for, mate.
Yeah.
It's not how long you go down. I don't go down.
It's one's evaluation of the situation as well.
Everything is happening for me, not to me. Every single thing. So if
I
it's happening for
completely
me,
agree.
it's making me better.
I can't see, even in your example, that it's not possible that there's ever a dip for something.
That's your.
depends on the
that's your choice. If you want to see it that
definition
way, I don't. I mean, and that's what I'm saying to you guys. I don't allow myself, because I have allowed myself to do that.
I think it's more a language thing rather than.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's more each person's expectations and language of very similar things, but they're just communicated
in the
differently.
context of peaks and valleys, the old man talks about the lessons he learned to stay on his peak, which turns into a plateau. And he said, gratitude, humility. So you can rest and recover and repeg, or you can just stay on that plateau if you're happy and content, no worries. Okay, but the issue is you don't have to valley. You start to get into a valley when you want what you don't have, when you want to receive for the work you haven't done. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when you become complacent. That's what happens. Things come to you and it happens to you. If I saw my dad dying, happening to me, if I saw my girlfriend listening because it's happening to me, then I had the opportunity to say, yeah, fucking poor me. Tell yourself that fucking story again, Conrad. See how long you want to play that game for, Conrad. Are you prepared to gamble your daughter's life on this one, Conrad? And I wasn't.
I definitely think it's all about perspective as well. As we could look at events in Conrad's life, for example, and we can perceive them as a valley, for example, like you said, a speeding ticket, a business opportunity that didn't go through,
Stub your toe.
Stub a toe, yeah, that's a classic.
a lot of these things, and we can say, oh, that's not a good day for Conrad, but you can say, well, that was happening for me, not to me, and therefore you can see it as a positive, a plateau. You can perceive it however you like. So it's always relative in that perspective. And if you've got, like you said, change your mindset, change your life. If your mindset is always to not accept that as a negative, but a learning opportunity or potential for growth, then at best it's always a positive, and it'll just be varying shades of positive rather than accepting as it.
But that becomes how he would have validated that, right? With Garen Jones. To see this, and people say this to me all the time. How the fuck can you be so positive all the time? Well, you can if you look at the opportunities to learn. I keep saying you get to a fork in the road. You got two opportunities. You're blessed when you get to a fork in the road. You've got a choice of two things. Most people don't even fucking know they've got choices. Okay, you got a choice to take the bold step and jump into the unknown, right? The dark cavern of whatever that fucking looks like. Or you can just choose to be comfortable and keep looping back your fucking circle, whichever. But you got a choice. All right? And I chose not to go back through my fucking loop. Because it didn't serve me. I didn't feel good. And I felt responsible. At least not for myself, but for the outcome for my daughter.
And that's self-awareness, isn't it? I mean, you've got to a level where you're very self-aware and you're able to control the ego, that voice in your head.
Yeah.
And point it in the right
But
direction.
you know what? I couldn't. And I'll be blatantly honest with you, right? When I thought of me, I couldn't do it. When I thought of my daughter, I had to do it.
Yep.
Right? Because that's what it became. And then the value of having a child took a lot more importance onto me. Not that it didn't and wasn't important before, but when I looked at the life I was living and the opportunities I was potentially missing or exposing my daughter to, I wasn't prepared to play that game. And I wrote a card to her on her 18th birthday, and I said this to her, and I've actually taken a photo, but I won't read it verbatim, but the message was, you will never know the impact you've had on the people around you. but never take it for granted. True story.
It's true.
Over to you, Mike.
Yeah, guys. That got nice and intense towards the end. That was good.
And that was just the wine.
It was the red. Yes, it was finally making us talk.
The truth serum, I say.
And I didn't even pour another. We're all bloody empty. I didn't pour another glass.
So we wasted a lot of time
Do
dancing.
we want another glass? Does anybody want a quick one?
I'm alright.
I'm good.
I'll get drunk.
Jacob will have it. I'm sure.
Before we go,
Yes.
just anyone that's listening, we would love to hear from you and would love to hear your review. So if wherever you get it from, podcast app, iTunes, Spotify, would love to get a review from you. So what we want to do is grow this community to add value to as many people as we can. And that's one way that will help us dramatically. So if you could do that, fantastic. If not, no dramas.
Enjoy the content. Shout out to Renee Blethyn, and I circulated her message to all you guys.
Yes.
Renee, can you please put some topics on here that you're telling me you want these guys to talk about? Because they will never believe me if I ever asked them or told them what you want me to talk about. So,
Well, she has to review first, otherwise no topic.
Because we have to ban impact theory for at least 2 months now. 'Cause we've had way too many impact theory.
he's impacting me.
Obviously. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Hope
you.
you enjoyed
Thank
the
you.
red wine, and I hope you enjoyed the salami, Jacob.
We miss you, Marco.
Yeah, we did. And Justin.
Champagne.
Champagne.